I only read one book, but it's a good book, don't you know? I act the way I act because the good book tells me so. If I want to know how to be good, it's to the good book that I go. Because the good book is a book, and it is good, and it's a book.
And in yet another remarkably prophetic chapter that had been written years after the events prophesied to explain their occurrence, Jacob, who had been insistent for the last 17 years that he was all set to buy the farm, get into the fertilizer business and inspect the grass from beneath, called unto his sons, and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Presumably his last days, as in many centuries hence. A man who would come to read this narrative in a literal, yet humorous way, would notice that those days, which would be known as the last, that the followers of the descendant of one of who would be present at Jacob's bedside would yearn for, had still not yet arrived. And so, because this narrative was drawing to a close, its penultimate chapter would be used to summarize what would happen to the principal cast in the future, so guiding the inevitable sequels that will follow. And so he called out, Gather yourselves together, and hear ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. And when his sons had arrived, and were sitting comfortably, he did begin. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. And Reuben did smile, as he did bathe in the adoration of his father. But his father did continue. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defiledst thou it. He went up to my couch. For no matter the kinship, or the number of years that do pass, no man can truly forgive another for fuckesting his wife. And the reader was left to wonder if the word couch was yet another biblical euphemism for the term balls deep. And Reuben did go and sit in the corner and sulk, as his brethren did snicker, and his father did turn his attention to two others. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations, for they were most into a thing that would one day become to be known as BDSM, and they did greatly enjoy being tied up with leather straps and chains, and then whipped and beaten until their buttocks did glow so that they would light up the room. And their father did cry out and exclaim, O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly. Mine honour, be not thou united, for thee may just end up dressed up in a leather gimp outfit and locked inside a wooden box in the basement. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. And those present did look one to the other, as the last part did appear to make no sense whatsoever, though in other versions of this entirely unambiguous narrative it would be said that they did also like to hamstring oxen, which did sound like the kind of thing done to an animal that would be legal in a place called Texas, even though a thing called gay marriage wouldn't be. And hinting at their moment of apeshit madness, when they did slay all the men of Shechem, he said, Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel, which would of course be used to explain why their descendants, amongst the 12 tribes that would arise, would have few lands, with one of them being allowed no lands at all. But though during this narrative it would be seen as a punishment, later, in further sequels, it would be said that this is because their inheritance would be the Lord himself, which is why they would become the priestly class amongst the tribes, that all other tribes would be required to pay a tithe to, and lo, it would be said that the man who did write this narrative, who would be the hero of its sequel, was himself descended from Levi. But Jacob wasn't finished yet, and he did next turn his attention to Judah, saying unto him, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies, thy father's children shall bow down before thee. As it did appear that everyone had forgotten all about that little incident with the harlot he did knock up, who did turn out to be his own daughter-in-law, And Jacob did continue. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? And those around him did once again look one to the other, just in case any of them did understand what he had just said. And many centuries hence, those that will follow one of Judah's many descendants, and will take this narrative to be the literal truth, but will ignore all that is written within it, will say that Jacob was referring to the one that they doth follow, when in fact it did simply mean that he was as brave as a lion. But there was yet more. The sceptre shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Which did indeed sound nice, yet in years to come it shall be King Saul of the tribe of Benjamin, who shall end the rule of the tribe of Judah rather than Shiloh, before the kingdom finally falls years after unto Babylon. But Jacob still had yet more to say. Binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. For the lands that the tribe of Judah will come to occupy will grow abundantly with vine, and flow a plenty with wine, as if it were water. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. For he shall get epically drunk daily, and have a good dentist. And he shifted his attention once more. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Which did mean that Zebulun would, with the rest of his tribe, live by the seaside, and they would either be dock workers or work seasonal jobs, selling ice cream and candy floss and an extensive range of tat unto tourists. Issachar is a strong ass, couching down between two burdens, though it shall not be known if that ass would be one ready to take upon these burdens, or if it had just gone there to have a little privacy while it did take a shit. And he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute, being the dog's body, and a slave under forced labour for the other tribes, mainly as even though the tribe would be descended directly from Issachar, the tribe would be named, from the fact that it shall be made up of peoples who shall originate from the Aegean, and a place that would be called Europe, who will be a seafaring raider, who will settle down in the region, taking the name Issachar, which doth almost literally translate to man for hire, in the language of the fathers, and so they would be greeted with calls of "Hello, sailor," and they would be rent boys. And then he did turn his attention unto Dan, who he did say shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel, although evidently it probably did have absolutely no effect whatsoever. Dan shall be a serpent, by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse's heels, so that his rider shall fall backward, as the tribe of Dan, by the time that this narrative shall be written, shall have quite a reputation, that, if believed, would suggest that far in the future one of their descendants shall be an ambassador for a place called America, and he shall have a son, who shall be named Damien. And at this point Jacob did stop, and did look at his watch, and seeing that he was still not dead yet, he did let out the cry, "I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord," and did get no reply. So he did soldier on. Gad, who absolutely wasn't named after the Semitic god of fortune, who was one of the Lord's mates, but is not talked about very much. A troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last, mainly because he is a lucky bastard, though it shall still not prevent the tribe that shall arise from being wiped out when they shall be attacked by those known as Assyrians. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties, though they shall be not part of a calorie-controlled diet. And the most famous of all Ashers, who doth be a master of cake, shall be Jane, who shall be known by a beetle called Paul, and the cakes she shall make shall indeed be truthful. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words, for one day he would be the fastest postman in the world, and shall deliver birthday cards to all. And then he did turn unto Joseph, his favourite son, who for some time had taken over as the hero of this narrative, and said, Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him, though the exciting details of when they did shoot at him, and why they did hate him, shall be left out of this narrative, though it could have something to do with the fact that, thanks to him, everyone in Egypt did lose all that they did possess, and now shall forevermore pay a 20% tax unto Pharaoh. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, for in those days there were a great many stoned shepherds, due to the herb which they did find, that the Lord had made, which was indeed very good. Even by the God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who by this account appears to be a completely different entity to the God of Jacob, who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts, and of the womb, which did sound like Joseph would indeed be blessed with poontang for the rest of his days, which sadly would be yet another part of the story that would be cut from this narrative. The blessings of thy father have prevailed, above the blessings of my progenitors, unto utmost bound of the everlasting hills, because in those days there was no such thing as erosion, and so the mountains would last forever. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren, as if these two were not the same person. And then finally, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. For despite being warned, when he did enter unto the tavern, he shall indeed stray from the road, and so be set upon by werewolves, and will go on to battle vampires, and terrorize a place called London. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, or rather those sons of Jacob who would go on to found them. And this is it that their father spake unto them, and blessed them, every one according to his blessing. He blessed them, whether they did like it or not, or were happy with the incredibly accurate predictions he did make, that were finally recorded here in this narrative, many years after they had been fulfilled, and may be corrected if it was the case that he was 3 miles off the mark. And he charged them, because like all fortune-tellers, his advice wasn't given for free. And he said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people, eventually, as despite 17 years of wishful thinking, it has not yet happened. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which apparently isn't the field of Ephron, which is before Mamre, which is a shrine just down the road from Hebron, which is also Machpelah, where Ephron had a field, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite for a possession of a burying place, giving the impression that Abraham did either buy the field of Machpelah using the field of Ephron, or that the two were separate fields, and Abraham did buy both, getting one thrown in for free when he did buy the other, which wouldn't be at all surprising. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. And because of this, those that would come later would fight tooth and nail to own the place, leading to a great many people needing to be buried elsewhere. The purchase of the field and of the cave that is therein was from the children of Heth, and it would be said many years hence to be one of only a few pieces of land in Canaan ever bought by the Hebrews, with another being the plot outside Shechem that Jacob did pitch his tent on, despite the Lord giving all of the land of Canaan unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in return for shortening their sleeves. And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into the bed, and held his breath. and 6 hours and 27 minutes later, with a little help from one of his sons with a satsuma and some gaffer tape, yielded up the ghost, and was gathered unto his people, who we assume would be pleased for him to join them, as they did party with the Lord for eternity. And the physician attending did lean over and did check Jacob's pulse, and finding one not, did announce to those present that Jacob was indeed at last dead. And Reuben stepped forward, and did look upon his father, and did say, "Nonsense, he's just resting." To which the physician replied, "Resting? He's not resting. I know a dead prophet when I see one. He's dead." And Reuben did look upon his father again, and did say, "No, he's definitely resting." And the physician was confused, and did say unto Reuben, "Okay, if he's resting, wake him up then." And Reuben did prod his father, and then did hold his eyes open, and did move his mouth, as if to speak, saying through clenched teeth, "See, I'm not dead." And the physician did exclaim, "That was you. You moved his mouth. I saw you." And Reuben replied, "No, it wasn't. He was talking." So the physician did pick up Jacob's bed plan, emptied its contents, and then did hit Jacob full in the face with it, twice. And as Reuben looked on, horrified, Reuben did cry out, "You've stunned him." To which the physician retorted, "He's not stunned, he's dead. He's passed on. This prophet is no more. He's ceased to be. He's expired and gone to meet his maker. He's assumed room temperature. He's bought the farm. He's picking turnips with a stepladder. He is a late prophet. He's a stiff. He's bereft of life. He rests in peace. He's mortally challenged. He's just got stamped return to sender. His metabolical processes are of interest only to historians. He's at the end of his earthly career. He's settled his tab at the bar of life. He's tending to a state of chemical equilibrium. He's shuffled off this mortal coil. He's run down the curtain and joined the choir invisible. He is an ex-prophet." And Reuben did weep, and say, "I never wanted to be a shepherd. You heard him. I'm no bloody good at it, and never will be. I always wanted to be a lumberjack, but there's not much call for that sort of thing round these parts, given that deserts are not well known for the trees." And the physician did console him. And after a moment's silence, Reuben did ask, "So he's dead then?" And the physician did say yes. And he did think about this, and did then say, "I suppose he won't mind if I go fuck his wife then." And with that he did run out of the tent, and off into the night in search of his stepmother.